let's talk about Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Joshua. Now, when I get to information here, you see multiple fighters in divisions. Now, in history, guys, here's the weight classes for everything. Here's the 4 alphabetical bodies that are in the ranks. You have Anthony Joshua, number 1 in the WBC, number 1 in the WBO, number 3 in the IBF, and number 2 in the WBA, while Francis Ngannou is only rated number 10 in the WBC. When you see that in comparison and seeing what you're paying attention to, we have a MMA fighter that has multiple wins in his bag. He's a heavyweight champ, an MMA fighter in his second professional fight, taking on Anthony Joshua after his controversial fight with Tyson Fury. Now, this has problems to do because I'm seeing Anthony Joshua. When you have Anthony Joshua, you come into 2023. He defeats Jermaine Franklin. He goes 12 rounds of distance with Jermaine Franklin barely winning a couple rounds. After that, he defeats Robert Helenius. That was 6 days' notice. He knocks him out in round 7. Otto Valine in December. He goes 5 rounds by corpsman retirement. Is Francis Ngannou going to last longer than Helenius and Valine? If he does, that would be great. Even if he goes the distance, that would be great. But here's the thing you viewers have to understand. Understand the information here. Because you have Francis Ngannou. Like I said, he went 10 rounds of distance against Tyson Fury, a guy that was 277 pounds. Don't get me wrong, Francis Ngannou was 272. And now he's 272 and a half, stepping in with Joshua, that's 252. And I'm a little bit worried because Anthony Joshua's weight has been having a problem because one day he defeated Jermaine Franklin, went 234 pounds. He was 249 pounds when we took on Robert Helenius. He was 238 pounds when he took on Valine. And that had to be the greatest unbelievable fight because that Joshua we saw him taking on Saudi Arabia that day was the Joshua that we've been waiting for. Now he's gaining another 14 or so pounds, which just makes it really hard for me to believe that he might not knock out Francis Ngannou. But here's the thing about boxers. Now, guys, MMA fighters come differently. Every time I pay attention to a fighter that's in the boxing match, it's not simple than an MMA fighter. Let me explain. As a boxer, you have to be within arm's reach in order to punch someone. If you're a kickboxer, range, kick, knees, anything. Because no bull holds barred. Because when you even pay attention to any MMA fighter, they're involved with the mobility because it takes it harder if you don't know what you're doing. And an MMA fighter, he doesn't have to worry about punching because it's all about kicks, legs, anything, depending as long as you know what to do. Same with no holds barred and submissions, which are the same thing in MMA. But in boxing, it's all about punching, no rabbit punches, holds, considering if there's any cheap shots, depends. So you got to depend on anything when you're in a ring against an MMA fighter. They're really scary because understand, for instance, Art Jimerson versus Royce Gracie, first ever UFC 1, the beginning. You have Art Jimerson with one glove. He's wearing boxing shoes. What the heck is he doing with one glove and a hand out? And he's trying to punch out Royce Gracie. Royce Gracie knows what he's doing. He waits for the opportunity. It took him 2 minutes to finish the fight, which was the longest fight in his day that day. He went 2 minutes against a boxer that went longer than the other fighters took on Royce because some fighters went a minute and the other went under a minute, which ended a lot quicker than him. It's stupid. You have Dan Severn taking on The Godfather and Brawl for All. You can tell that the mobility of a grappler, because keep this in mind, Dan Severn isn't a puncher. He's not a boxer. He gets no holds barred. He's a no holds barred because outside of the range, because you have to understand, You stay just outside the range because you know that when you're close to the action. Because remember, I've heard a lot of people say this. I always hear a lot of people, who's going to commit to this? Who's going to commit to going for the attack? Who's going to go throw the first punch? Who's going to throw a leg kick? But if you put a MMA fighter in a boxing ring, that is deadly. And that's what I'm worried about. And because Anthony Joshua is over 252 pounds, will this affect him? He's 34 years old. He's 6'6". He's taken on a 6'4" from Cameroon that's 37 years old. But as he is, an MMA fighter knows when you're close enough to go for the attack, to know from range. Because from range of punching, MMA fighters know what to do. But as a boxer, it's hard. When you watch Anderson Silva taking on Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., you could tell how Silva took care of him. It was a tough 8-round fight, don't get me wrong. And that had to be one of the greatest wins, maybe one of the last greatest wins in Anderson Silva's career, considering his MMA career was already dead after he broke his leg against Chris Weidman a while back, and that destroyed his career. But yeah, still, when you see how an MMA fighter can handle a world championship hype job like Cesar Chavez's son, goes to show you that there might be a chance that a fighter might have a chance. But the thing is, Joshua has to be prepared. When I came into this, I thought he was going to weigh like 240 pounds, probably the same weight when he took on against Valine or maybe Valine. Or same thing as Helenius. That's not the case. Will that affect his career? Well, who knows? Because with everything else, these guys have had horrible losses in their career. But I don't think it's going to be any tougher because Joshua has to understand this is a matter if a knockout is going to take place. Because this is a 10-round fight and anything can go wrong. Anyone can have a good fight, a good day, as long as they know what they're doing. You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to stick with it. Now, keep this in mind, guys. The next fight is going to be tough because you have Joseph Parker with the one and only, Zhilei Zhang. If Joseph Parker wins this, I have no doubt in my mind that he's back in contention. A former champion, the first guy to ever go the distance with Anthony Joshua in 2018. He was the first guy to go the distance with him. And even though Joseph Parker lost his second fight after that, which was a shocker against Dillian Whyte, and even though he went an okay distance with a lot better than Dillian Whyte, even though Dillian Whyte did knock him out in round 2 and in round 9, but at least he finished it off with Dillian Whyte in the 12th round, but still. Yeah, and I know people think with his loss against Joe Joyce wasn't that good enough, even though Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua had a 20-23-year career, because Joseph Parker's win against Jack Massey and Fago Apelu weren't that much to talk about. Even though he took on the white Canadian fighter Simone Keane, which I thought, okay, that brought him back, just to come 2 months later to finish Deontay Wilder. He knew what he was getting himself into. He knew that he can win the fight because Deontay Wilder doesn't care about winning rounds. He cares about knockouts. He knows what he's getting himself into, and that's why he won the fight. Yes, he weighed 245 pounds. He was overweight against a 213-pound Wilder that would have easily got him if he should have cared about winning rounds instead of going for a knockout. Seeing him win that fight was obvious because I knew it was going to be a tough fight, but a little bit scary because you think one mistake, who's going to create the first mistake? It's going to come to an end. Deontay Wilder didn't see that, and at that moment, I thought he should just retire. Parker, on the other hand, knows what he's doing. He's at 247 pounds. He's taken on a 291-pound Zhilei Zhang, a man that's early in the fight. Every time when you see Zhilei Zhang get into the first few rounds of the fight, you know you have to stay the heck away from him. If you go later in the fight, you'll have no problem. Now, Joseph Parker has to play it smart in the rounds Because keep this in mind, Jerry Forrest got caught on really hard in the first rounds when he took on Zhang, only to survive after the end of round 4 to finish the last 5 rounds off strong to end in a majority draw. We got that. And ever since his other 2 fights with Craig Lewis and Scott Alexander, which were great knockout fights, don't get me wrong, they were good to build back Zhilei Zhang's win. He even knocked out Phil Perkovich, and I still believe he won 6 rounds and more to defeat Phil Perkovich, but Phil Perkovich is the lucky underdog, and hey, if he wins a heavyweight champion due to how bad his stance performance is, hey, good on him. Just too bad he still needs more practice, even though he is a number 1 IBF champion. You can't throw that away because Zhilei Zhang, considering he hasn't been in the boxing business that long, he's only been in amateur boxing a lot. But keep this in mind, guys. Keep this in mind. Let me give you some information here. When you see the level of understanding, the last time Joseph Parker and Zhilei Zhang took on each other was back in October the 2nd, 2011, in the country of Azerbaijan, which was actually for the AIBA World Championship. This was for the championship titles for the finals and such. Well, not the finals. It wasn't the final match. I think it was actually it was preliminary rounds. And Zhilei Zhang defeated Joseph Parker in an amateur 3-round fight with 15-7. Not bad. Only he did lost against Ivan Daichko, which was the bronze medalist for the 2016 Olympics, and he hasn't. Well, he might grow up in the future, but still, that's the last time we saw it. So is Joseph Parker going to get back his win that he lost against Zhilei Zhang? That would be a great moment. That would be a great moment. Yeah, that would be a great moment. But you got to understand, WBO champion. He's only been in boxing in the professional since 2014 to 2013. This is his 10th year. He's 40 years old. There's no chance, but as long as he can actually survive the first few rounds, I think Joseph Parker, if he can be smart to go to 12 rounds or see if he gets tired into the fight until probably round 10, he might finish off Zhang. So he knows he has to go later in the fight instead of early because he knows that Zhang is a dangerous competitor when you're early in the fight. You got to watch your back. You got to watch this or that. You got to watch everything that you got to make sure to step away, because Zhilei Zhang has only boxed 28 fights in his career and only done 93 rounds in his entire boxing career. He was only boxed 93 rounds in 28 bouts with 80.77% knockout. That's not good enough considering Joseph Parker's career. He's had 37 fights, 238 rounds in his career in his last 11 years in boxing since he started boxing in 2012. This is his 12th year, and he has 67.65. He's not a knockout person, but if he can wait for the right opportunity, he might finish him later on. So don't count him out. Don't count out the New Zealand Joseph Parker. He might come back. And if he does, he might have a chance to present New Zealand to become the first ever 2-time champion. Who knows? If the WBO might come into him for the interim, he might win this. So you can't count him out. But defeating Zhilei Zhang might bring him into a higher percentage in the rankings. It can bring him back. You can actually see there's a chance when anyone out there will take on the greatest. So if Joseph Parker wins this might bring him back to success. It might bring him back. It will give him the courage. And don't get me wrong, guys. Considering we still have one other fighter from Australia named Justice Hooney, if he even defeats Kevin Lorena, now that might bring him back to the rankings as well. But I would like to see Justice Hooney fight a few more times until he's 12-0, a Mark Gastineau record. So let's not, maybe they should just give him some easier fights after Kevin Lorena, because I think he needs to practice a lot more before he takes on big opponents. He's 8-0, and I just don't think he's ready for the big time of taking on top fighters. And I think he's getting pushed too deeply that Kevin Lorena might win. But that's talk for nothing. No more talk. So at the end of the day, I do see Anthony Joshua, but I don't see him winning this fight by knockout. I see him go 10 rounds of distance against Francis Ngannou. If he makes a mistake, Ngannou might throw something at him, and it might be an upset. Even if Ngannou loses his fight, it still gives him respect that he went the distance against a fighter that was so dangerous, a 2-time British heavyweight gold medalist champion. That would be amazing. If he wins, it will be even more surprising to know where he's going to be in the ranks. Will he be number 2? I just don't see him being ranked number 2, even though Anthony Joshua is rated number 2 in BoxRec. I don't see him being rated in the WBC at number 1 if he wins this fight, depending on how the fight ends. But who knows? You can't throw this away. You throw it away, it might come to bite you, and your boxing career is long, dead. It's over. Story's over. You got to throw this away. Everything here marks the ability. Everything here will give it a shot. Joseph Parker might come over. He's back-to-back wins in multiple fights in 2023, followed by AJ. So who knows if we get to see the fight come back forward? Who is going to take the win? To be honest, who knows? Because at the end of the day, it's going to be a tough fight when you actually have to know who the greatest fighter of all time is. But to be honest, there's going to be enough fighters in here in Saudi Arabia because, like I said before, we have multiple heavyweight title fights. But to be honest, they might not happen. We might not have a lot of heavyweight title fights like we did in 2022. We might have no more than just, like I said before, probably just 2 heavyweight title fights as we did last year ago. You don't know, but it might happen, it might not. I just barely might see no more than just a couple heavyweight title fights. The first fight will be taken in, which will be obvious, on March the 31st. And to be honest, before ending this video, I will like to say good luck for Manuel Charr if he does take the win here, because for everything here on March the 30th, live in Kubrat Pulev's state and country, I would like to say good luck to him for champion, because just because we have 2 guys that are in their 40s right now, they're in their champion, their hopes, dreams, anyone can take the cake here. They have multiple losses in their career, but they have a lot of wins. But to be honest, will we have the first ever Bulgarian boxer to ever become heavyweight champion? You can't throw that away yet. You can't throw it away yet. Keep this in mind. Manuel Charr hasn't taken on a lot of top contenders, like probably contenders like Alexander Usyk, which was past his prime at the time when he won the heavyweight champion in 2017. It was a lackluster fight. There was nothing about it except a round 8 knockout. He took on Safar Safari. He even took on Safari's brother in 2022, to be honest, which was the guy that took on Tyson Fury in June of 2018 in his comeback fight. He defeated some interesting fighters like Michael Grant, past his prime in 2014. Kevin Johnson, that was becoming a jobber at the time. So who knows? He even took on a couple other fighters in 2011, 2010 that were somewhat interesting opponents, but he hasn't taken on any other good top contender ever since. He's boxed for 18 years, and this is his 19th year. Kubrat Pulev has taken on a bunch of fighters. He lost 2 fights that were like not undisputed fights. They were unified fights. And he's lost a fight against Derek Chisora. But does he have what it takes to take that championship hope up to the next level? His win against Andrew Varchek, considering he went the distance against a guy that's lost 2 fights by quick knockouts, you can't say anyone might have a chance. You can't say that he might not give up on life. He's boxed for now 15 years, since 2009. He might have a chance to become the first Bulgarian heavyweight championship. You take on these fighters, you take them on hard. And if he can actually finish Manuel Charr as quick as he can, just like the other fighters that knocked Manuel Charr in his career, it might happen. It's obvious with a guy with 2 heavyweight title fights being dominated in both fights, he might still have a left in him. And even though after his loss against Derek Chisora in 2022, I couldn't say that his career wasn't over yet. But of course, since he took a huge long hiatus, he fought against Varchek back in December, he had the problem. But here's the problem. Since they announced the fight in January, he wasn't even rated in the WBA, even though the WBA updates came in January the 1st, about weeks before they announced the fight in mid-January. And guess what? He wasn't rated there, but when February 1st it came, he was actually rated number 10 in the WBA. So that goes to show you that they're really trying to promote this fight on. To be honest, it's still February 1st, but I'm still trying to wait for the updates on March the 1st to see where he'll be ranked, but it might be the same. So anyone can win, but at the end of the day, We have to keep it steady. This might happen, this might not, and I really want to see it happen. If Kubrat Pulev wins, he might become the first Bulgarian heavyweight championship, and this will make great success in worldwide from Europe. This will bring heavyweight boxing back on the map.